Ready to be Romanced. I'm Tori.
And I'm Megan.
And today we're discussing
A court of
silver
silver flames. The way that every single time you have it written in front of you, you just get the giggles. You just can't, you cannot say it. It's like every ability to read flies out the window.
I know, I become illiterate.
It's
like Feyre. Like Feyre in the first book.
Wait, let's say it together now.
Yeah.
We don't even know. We don't even know the name of it anymore.
That's how I feel though. I feel a little bit to be fully transparent with the listeners, I feel a little like separate from this series just because I actually read this book, you know, months ago when I finished the series. Maybe was it even late last year or maybe really early 2024. And then obviously we're still waiting for ACOTAR 6 and there's just only been like abysmal details on the TV show. So, like, I'm barely hanging on over here.
When were you in LA?
Yes.
Because
thank you.
I will tell, even though you're feeling distant from it, and just before we got on, we talked about how we're kind of feeling distant for it. When you finished it, you were on vacation in Los Angeles, and you're like, can I call you? I need to call you. And you had so many opinions. So it was hot and fresh for you at one point.
No, that's so true. So I think that was the end of February, maybe the first week of March. So that's when I read it. And you're so right. It's so funny because this book is simultaneously my favorite, but also like the worst book I've ever read.
You're spitting nothing but truth. Nothing but truth.
It's tough because it's just so long and there's so much detail about. Now it's not the war details, it's the training details and like this fucking blood right that I don't think you haven't read Iron Flame, right?
Is that the dragon book? I read Fourth Wing, but I could not actually. I started Iron Flame and I could not finish it. It was a little bit too. Yeah, training and war stuff loses me a little in terms of fantasy world. I'm more interested in magical items, like it depends.
Well, you've got lots of those in this one. But yeah, in that book too, they go on this big long journey that I'm like, this could fully be scrapped. Or it could be cut down into like a very small portion of the book, or I don't know, broken into two.
Do you know what it is? The movie girlies, we just get a little montage of 30 seconds of all the time passing. And it's like, why has no one learned from New Moon what pages of months, the name of months passing by can do for us? That's all we need.
No, seriously, that's so fucking true. Why do you think Sarah J. Maas put this all into one book? Like, because it seems like ACOTAR and ACOMAF could truly be like one book if it wasn't for the length, and I think it's a good idea that she broke it into two. This also could have been 2 books.
I think that a bit of it has to do with she never early on would have been published for this big of a book because she wasn't well known. So I think the first ones were shorter because of that. And then when often authors of longer series, even thinking the Harry Potter books, they got kind of bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it felt for me like there was more of a reason for that as like the themes matured and you needed more time. But in the same vein, it's like these books got bigger and bigger. And I think maybe because I don't know if she has the intention. Maybe I won't know if like the 6th book is also about Nesta, but I don't think the intention was ever that there was a multi-series on Nesta. It's right. Like Feyre had the 3, which was kind of its own trilogy, and then there's like the novella, and then Nesta, and then of course there's always rumors that like the next book is not about Nesta is the idea, right? That it's either going to be Asriel or Elaine or Tamlin, like some other character it's going to focus on. So maybe that's why she put it in one, and they knew they could sell it, I bet. Like at that point, everyone's feral. As much as we are far from it, and I'm like, I'm over A Court of Thorns and Roses, whatever. The second she drops something about like a
Oh
book,
yeah.
I'll be at the midnight release. Like
Yeah,
I know I'm being
totally.
like I'm not above that. I'm gonna be gagged for it. I'm gonna be excited. So it's just because it's been such a gap of time that
Mhm.
I'm bored maybe of it just recycling what we already have. All the content that I see is already stuff I know about it. And so I'm grasping, I'm waiting for new stuff.
Totally. And it's so funny because I'm late to the game. Again, I read these over, I guess, 2023 and 2024. Like some of that is 10 years past its pub date.
Hmm.
And even now, I see TikToks and I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're late to the party. Like you don't know them like I know them. Like
I guess because once you read them, you do think you're in it and you start getting the TikToks and you do some podcasts about it and you're really in it.
mhm.
Two of my coworkers at work just recently, actually, thanks to you, who sent me my
Love.
Asriel recent Cassian heart stickers, which just putting this for a still here because one of my favorite stickers. I had it at work, and this new girl on my team turns to me and goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm starting to read that just right now." And the joy
I
that of like
know.
of a
I
new
know.
person who might not be all in internet land, but they're reading it for the first time. They're like, my friend recommended it to me. And then another girl from my team came in, sat down, and was like, what are you guys talking about? And I'm like, oh my gosh. She goes, I just finished the first book. The second one's starting to get really good. And so it's fun for people that are new. I think on internet it gets a little bit contrived and you get into it, but man, when you're talking about it in real life, it's exciting.
Ugh, nothing's better, truly. And I want to shout out Kathleen. I met one of my friend's cousins when I went to Maine this past July, and she said she was reading the series and caught up on all my podcasts and sent me a lovely email. So shout out to Kathleen.
Aw, that's so cute. Well, didn't you have people read it because you started it and
Oh,
it was one of,
so
and then they said, okay,
yes.
I read it. And so like, it's like, yeah, bring them
Yes.
into the family. Let's all get obsessed and get ready for the next one.
Yeah, so many people. I have chosen to read so many of the books that I've covered on here.
Should we make a pact to go to the midnight release together if we can make it in the same city and then you
yeah.
start reading it and then we'll like do an episode as soon as we can?
Yes, I
Um,
would love that. I would love that. Okay. Spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about A Court of Silver Flames, but we're only going to cover chapters 1 through 36. It's about the halfway point of the book, and obviously spoilers for all of the books that have come before it. So, as everyone knows, it was written by Sarah J. Maas, and it was published February 16th, 2021. So, only 3 years ago.
mhm.
And we start off, and it's been 9 months since Winter Solstice, which is where Frost and Starlight ended. And this is so tough for me because it's so unfair. But Cassian goes to Nesta's shitty old apartment. He's sent by Feyre to get Nesta out of bed and to their new estate, Feysen's new beautiful house.
Oh,
Right before.
just add it to the ninth, it's the 10th. Is it the 20th? At what point?
At what point do you just become like a rich billionaire recent and it's just too much? But also
Yeah,
like a way to rub salt in the wound. Like
like
you know
come over to my new house, like as if they don't have 17 other guest houses that we don't know about yet. And she's in like, what do they reference it? They're like, what is this place called? The City of Starlight, 10 million. They have 10 million names, and they're like the slums. And
mm,
meanwhile, recent every time has been like, my city, nobody does poorly. Like we're a city that cares for each other. My social systems, they're great. Maybe I'm pulling this out of nowhere, but I feel like
that's the implication.
why does this city have slums that she's living in?
100%. And you know when just everything is an affront to you?
Hmm.
Like you're like, yeah, don't I know it? But it's like when you're just like feeling bad about yourself and then someone's like, oh, come over to my like stunning house with my like super stable relationship and all my best friends and you know this beautiful city that I rule over and shit like that, and you're just like, this is offensive to me. But Cassian drags her out of bed. She had a one night stand with a fae, a male fae, and this is the first time they've talked in months since the summer. He's been ignoring her because he thinks her attitude is shitty. And we kind of hear a little bit about how the inner circle has been trying to convince her to move and to get a job. And she's basically refused all offers for help. And she's bitter. She's like mad that she's a fae, that her dad died. She's mad at Feyre for like going on her special journey and stuff like that. The final like salt in the wound is when she gets to the estate and Feyre has covered the house in paintings and none of them include Nesta.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking brutal. Like, that's so rude.
Well, yeah, we kind of know. It's funny because all throughout, Nesta has always been a bit of an antagonistic character. We blame her for kind of being petty and loose with their money when they don't even really have any, and that Feyre's the youngest, Nesta's the oldest, and Feyre has to go hunt for them. Like the first book, her family's kind of nasty, right? And we're like, ugh, like good for you, Feyre, for getting out. Then obviously they become a little bit more involved. And even though we're always kind of like anti Nesta, and then I feel like that's what's interesting about starting this book from Nesta's perspective. And pretty quickly, even if you want to feel like you're getting what you deserved or whatever, because you've always been whatever, you do start to realize this is terrible. And I mean, how would you, yeah, it's like how just rub some salt in it that you just are clearly not a part of this. And I feel like she's going through some deep trauma and no one has patience for her.
No, I really believe, because it's like, you're right. When you read the first couple books, you're like, fuck these bitches, like Elaine and Nesta. I feel like Elaine, you're useless. You're doing nothing. No offense. There's so many Elaine stands out there. I'm like, guys, like fucking wake up. She is literally a wet blanket.
Like Sarah Ness gives her more life, but up to this point, she does not have very much character
no.
to her.
No, she is fucking nothing. And then, yeah, Nesta's a bitch, 100%. She is, like, so fucking rude in the first book, especially. And you're right, like, leaves poor little Feyre to, like, fend for herself, which, like, I do feel bad. But then the way that Feyre, like, turns it around where she is now, like, on moral high ground.
Big time.
And, like, big time. And then just cannot see or doesn't extend any empathy to Nesta.
I think they say it feels like because they're like, well, we are giving you a place to live and you're using our money and we're just offering you 10 million jobs and you're not taking it. Again, it paints her to be this bad person, but it's very clear. I don't know. I think this is a pretty common theme, especially in the beginning and how they treat her, but like opinions online too, and what I've seen is that why was there so much patience for Feyre, and why, like, she was also a bit of a shell of a human, and Rhys had a hard on for her, so she gets a pass. I just feel like, yeah, but they really are painting a dire picture of, well, Feyre's not painting a picture of Nesta, but it's not good at the beginning, and then they give her like an ultimatum, kind of, or force her.
Yeah, because they let Elaine sit in a chair and not eat and drink for months, but no one had a word to say about fucking that. But yeah, they give her an ultimatum. It's Amren, Cassian, Feyre, and Rhysand, and they say the option is you go train with Cassian every single day, or we will like cut you off and you'll be forced to head back to the mortal realms.
Mm-hmm.
She chooses to train with Cassian, which I guess is giving like a little bit. At that point I would have been like, well, like.
I think maybe what I was annoyed at was there's a third option where you just say, okay, we're not going to pay for you anymore, but you can figure out your own job. And I feel like she would have. I'm like, she's scrappy. She'd get it together. Like, why is it that you can only stay a prisoner here and train what you don't want to do and like do a job that you don't want to do? Or we're going to forcefully like, uh, put you back into the mortal realms where
Well, you'll
humans
get
hate fairies
killed.
and you get killed.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
anyways, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with Inner Circle. I'm not impressed with this. I don't like the like slut shaming that she gets. Oh, you're just drinking and like this is trauma.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The comments about her drinking and sleeping with people when she never drank or slept with people before. So this change in behavior isn't at all considered like some type of response. And like again, you guys, this is 9 months after winter solstice, which was what, was that a year after the war?
I don't even, yeah, it's like a war. She lost her dad. She saw, yeah, and
Yeah.
she's still, I think, I mean, her and Elaine both, I think, are still getting over the fact that their lives have completely like changed just because they can't be warrior princess Feyre
Yeah.
with the love of her life. Anyways, so yeah, she chooses, well, she like chooses as much as she has choice to go up. And it's the House of Wind, right? Where there's 10, conveniently 10,000 steps up and down. That it's like, they're like, you can leave if you want, but the only way you can is if you go down these steps. I'm like, with what Stairmaster?
No, I know, I know. When she first walks down like 100 and then walks, I guess, back up 100, I was like, okay, 100 steps, I feel like isn't actually that bad. Like, I think of like when I've walked to the top of like lighthouses or like Notre Dame or whatever, it's like 200 steps and like you can do it, like truly. Like, it's not, but like 10,000 steps, I feel like is like literally impossible for
Yeah,
anybody.
100's even possible. When she tries to go down
No.
when she tries to go down for the first time and gets down like 100, I'm like, same girl. I'd be huffing and puffing.
Oh, I'd be huffing and puffing. It would take me a long time, but it's not, I don't think,
you,
like
you could do it.
unreasonable. But like, yeah, so she either can fly with Cassian or Azriel, or and she can't winnow. So her
Yeah.
only options are the steps, and she has to stay there because Feyre's tearing down her old apartment and building a shelter with it, which is like just so fucking rude, but
It's just very
whatever.
Mary Sue. It's like, of course, she's building a shelter.
Yeah, 100%. We also hear that Cassian has been like quelling kind of whispers at the Lyrian camps. They are still keeping track of the human queens because they haven't heard from them and they think that they might be plotting something big. So basically, as one might think, Nesta fully refuses to train with Cassian. Like, he takes her to the Lyrian camps and kind of like, I actually felt bad for Cassian at this point because he's
Hmm.
supposed to be the general. He's supposed to, order the troops around, and in front of everyone, she completely like disregards
Refuses.
him and refuses.
Brat behavior, brat summer.
Yeah, she was having a brat winter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I felt for Cassian too. I mean, I think the interesting thing about this book is the first three books, because I don't think part of the novella was from third person, but the first three books are from Feyre's point of view using the I first person. And
Mm-hmm.
then this one switches to third person and it switches between Nesta and Cassian's perspective. It's also kind of Cassian's book, even though it's like about
Yeah.
Nesta's journey. Like the only perspectives we get are those ones. And so you do feel bad for Cassian because he's like you get a bit of his perspective as you're reading through it, and you know that he obviously has a thing for Nesta and it's built for books. So he likes her, he wants her to be okay. He thinks this is the way that it's gonna help, and no matter what he tries to offer or give, be tough or sweet or understanding, she will not engage with any of it. So yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it, but also I was like, good for you for doing nothing. I was on both ends. Like, good for you, Nesta, for sitting there and doing nothing.
I know, and I'm like, at this point, he is being sweet to her, but I think because it's from Feyre and Rhysand's like orders that he does this, she just feels like she feels so worthless as a human being. I think that that's the other really hard thing to like read about in this book is she has absolutely zero self-worth and like basically thinks that yeah, they should all ditch her and like that he shouldn't even give her the time of day basically. And that's why she's like acting out because she's like trying to not get close to him, so she has to like build a wall.
And that's why every girly who ever read A Court of Silver Flames relates so deeply to Nesta.
No, I know. Very like older sister vibes, obviously. And yes, just like people who react to vulnerability and shame and stuff like that with anger.
Emotional. I mean, it's a very emotional journey for Nesta.
We get more of her backstory about how her mom she was closest to and her dad was closest to Elaine and Feyre, and just that her mom saw her as like a potential like social chess piece. And so I feel like she didn't get to develop, like I guess self-worth, because if she only derived it from that and then her family was like failing, she like I feel like just felt like a big failure. But Moore was the one who winnowed Cassian and Nesta to the Illyrian camps, and so she comes back to get them and she's like, how'd it go? And Cassian's like, oh, like we didn't do anything. Nesta fucking sat there. And then Moore literally rips her a new asshole and is like you don't even deserve the benefit of the doubt, and good people like Cassian shouldn't give it to you.
So intense. I know Moore and Moore is protective of her people. Although I do have quite a bit of a problem with how like Moore is just like not in A Court of Silver Flames. I'm sure it will come back around of what she was doing because she's often like, I'm in the other lands negotiating, trying to prevent stuff. So either she will get her own book or maybe she'll have a section, but she is barely in this book. And as somebody who I'm actually interested in the character, I'm always so annoyed that she's we don't get very much of her. We don't know what's going on.
100%. In the afternoon, Nesta has to work at the library under the House of Wind, and she works with Clotho. Like, is it Clotho or Clotho?
No, cringy.
It's so cringy. And
no, at least it's not Bog, which is like the monster that looks like a bog. Like, at least her name isn't Bucko. She works in the library.
Yeah. No, literally. That's so fucking funny. Yeah, and Clotho, like, can't speak and just communicates through writing and stuff like that. Because as we know, it's people that have, like, experienced some type of, like, violence that, like, work there under Rhys's safety.
The priestesses, right? And they have all of this. Yes, because the library is also where a battle happened in, like, the last book with Bryaxis. And like that creature at the bottom of the library and stuff. So yeah, I think that's the job that they force her to do, right? Is to like in the afternoons you have to work at the library to like earn your keep.
Totally. So she shelves books and then she goes back to the House of Wind. She like tries to talk to it because you know how it like can like sense what you need and just like fills up the bath and like makes dinner for you and stuff like that. So she's like always asking it for wine, which I think is really funny. Because she is literally detoxing because she has like maybe not full blown addiction issues at this point.
That's what she was coping with.
So she was drinking heavily like every single day. So she's literally fucking detoxing right now. And she like tries to make her way down the stairs and she doesn't really make it that far. But like, again, this is so brutal.
So like, dark, but also I'm like, I'll take a magical house while I have to like recover. I'll take the fancy bath, the fancy things. Let's not forget that they're rich upper echelon people.
No, I know. We see more about what the inner circle is doing to combat these fears of war. So Moore and Cassian win out to the human lands where Vasa, Jurian, and Lucian are fucking living as the Band of Exiles.
If it doesn't come out that they're all in a polyamorous relationship, I will be upset at the final book because they're like, we're besties. We all live in the same house. They're like, you live in the same house? And they're like, yeah. I know that won't happen, but please.
No, it truly won't. But but like, but let's give them a name anyways. Eris shows up and he's like, yeah, like some of my soldiers went missing. So like things are like fucking brewing over there. And we hear that Brialyn, one of the witches who was turned immortal by the cauldron.
The queens?
Yeah, one of the queens. But remember, she was young and then came out old. She like literally wants to start another war to be young again. Which, like, yeah, relatable. Relatable queen. Like,
relatable.
Vasa says that Brialyn is working with Koschei. Which, like, who the fuck are these people? Like, who the fuck are these people? That is, like, a sorcerer that cannot be killed who imprisoned Vasa in Akawar.
Do you even remember them? Like, I do know because I've read the book so many times, but on a first read through, the way I would not care or clock, they have nothing to do with anything. I'm sure it's like little fantasy stuff that she'll sprinkle in so something makes sense. But I'm like, please, I do not care. I simply do not care about these random people.
No, I really, really don't. Also, Koschei, is that the bone carver and the weaver's brother?
Yes.
Yes. But then who is Bryaxis related to?
No, you said this last time. You were like, no, Bryaxis is their brother. And I'm like, no, he's just random. Bryaxis is just like, it's still let loose because I think he made a deal with Feyre that he needed to be back in the library. Yes. I think and all he wanted was like a little sliver of the sky so that he could like see the sun and the moon. And then he's just like out there and he's like, Cassian's so scared of him. So he's still on the loose.
Yeah, and Nesta can feel his darkness in the library. So we know that she, like, you know, can call to evil spirits.
Because her whole power that nobody knows what it is. It's like, still the question is, what is her power? What did she take? What did she take from the cauldron? Nobody could say. Nobody knows. She doesn't want to talk about it. And then it's just like, death. Death is her power.
No, I like literally cannot stand that. Like,
oh, tell me more. What do you not like about it?
It just, all of this is starting to feel hand wavy. Like, I just don't get really the difference, I guess, between people that are made and then people that are
fairies. Like
like the Fae. Like, I know I get it in theory, but obviously, but like it's just annoying how they all end up so different.
And the slight nuances that just, yes, I think there's a bit of hand wavy stuff that we'll get to where you're like, really? But I think that's for me, it's very much in the second half. So the stuff is brewing. What's happening next?
They're training. Like, she's trying the stairs. Like, a fucking snooze fest, truly. There's another time that they go to the Illyrian camps to train. She's still refusing. So she goes into some of the shops and she meets Emery. She's the owner of a shop there that we first met in Frost and Starlight. And Nesta's like, I'm looking for warmer fighting leathers. And it's like, girl, it's because you're sitting there. You're not moving around at all. You're sitting on a cold fucking rock. But they like chat a little bit. We learn more about Emery and like her clipped wings and kind of the Illyrian backstory about how females were always treated differently and they weren't allowed to like be in the military, which is like their whole purpose. And then like people would clip their wings in like a really gruesome way. So they weren't able to fly.
Love to have a fantasy world where anything's possible and yet still misogyny
yeah.
Alive and well. My favorite thing.
100%. It's so funny. But she like can't pay for the warmer fighting leathers, but Emery's like, okay, well, I'm still gonna like try to figure out something for you. And they kind of are building a relationship, a little friendship here. She also starts hanging out with Gwen, who is in the library with her because Gwen overhears Nesta talking to the house, which is truly her only friend. Like, before these two chicks come around, it's just the house.
Oh. Yeah, because the house gives her like also romance books, and we know Nesta likes to read. We know that Nesta is a self-insert for anybody also reading the book. So Sarah J. Maas just had to throw in that she also loves to read smut books, and we're like, right, we get it. We're Nesta.
That's one of my biggest grapes and grumbles. Like, because it's just too on the nose. Like, it's just too fucking on the nose when people in romance novels read romance novels. To me, I hate it.
And that's every single book is the main character of being a writer of romance novels. It's okay, we're not talking about Emily Henry, but
no, it's literally no, I know it's literally like I'm referencing Emily Henry books.
That's so funny. I'm glad. Let's just name it. Let's name the name the reference. But yeah, Gwyn is another priestess who's in the library, and so yeah, she overhears her, and I think Nesta actually helps her out because Gwyn has like misplaced a book for, I don't know, not Clotho, Meryl, another like hard ass priestess, and Nesta I think helps her out, and it's kind of this like budding kind of friendship, and it is kind of nice to see Nesta get to interact. You know, when something has happened to you in your life, or I mean, obviously we all have baggage, but then there is the possibility of meeting new people and they don't know that about you yet. Like, there's something really like, I like that she gets to explore and make friends with some new people and new characters, because I think that she really needed that to not have all this baggage. And like, no one in the inner circle, they were all there for Feyre first and foremost. And so there's nobody in that. Like, we also learned at the beginning, I think, that Amryn and Nesta had been getting along, but there's this like summer party at the barge that's referenced where Amryn and her got into a big tiff, and then Amryn hadn't been talking to her either for months or whatever the timeline is. So she's like being alone, right? So it's nice to see her growing friendship with other people
and replacing her two sisters with two other women. Like,
go for it, Ness.
Gwen, I think, is an acolyte because she can talk, so it's not, I think, the same, but she's still like grouped in together, I think, with these priestesses.
Yeah, they don't have to all not talk. It's just a lot of them. There are some that don't, some that, yeah. And they're allowed to leave the library, but like they don't, or they
don't. Yeah.
They just stay there because they've been so traumatized that this is like their safe place. So yeah, Nesta slowly making connections.
She's at first like, I don't take orders from you, only from Clotho. But when Gwen asks her to shelve some books, but she like does it anyways. So I guess this is a glimmer of hope that she's like a redeemable character, I guess, in SJM's eyes. Cassian, is amazed that the house is becoming Nesta's friend because it brings her cake and books and all of that stuff, but doesn't do that for other people. And on one of the nights, Nesta has a nightmare after she goes out, or like tries to go out and drink again, and she like falls down the steps. This is the first glimmer we see of her power, because she like tries to grab a hold of the railing, and like she like fully imprints her whole hand into the wall.
Yeah, like burns into the wall or whatever. Yeah, because I think the silver flame, it's referenced that her death power or her eyes becoming silver or whatever has something to do with kind of fire. And so, yeah, sure, hand wave it away.
Truly. So she's still refusing to train. Nesta and Cassian just fully bicker this, and it's fun bickering though, because because at the end of Akawar they make those huge confessions to each other, and the gift in Frost and Starlight and stuff like that, we know that there is something going on at this point, and like they know it as well. So we know that all their bickering, I feel like, is in good fun. Or like, I don't know, just really good, I guess, enemies to lovers. But they like fully are fighting in front of Azrael. This is probably, I would say, the ugliest point in the book until he brings her on the hike. But
Okay, I was gonna say.
yeah, they're getting frustrated basically that she can't train. Cassian's just like, this is like pretty crazy that you're like denying Reese because he is, you know, the one that gives orders and we basically follow them. And she's like, I fucking hate Reese. He's an asshole. He's arrogant. Cassian is like, actually, Reese fucking hates you too. And know what? Actually, everyone hates
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. But Nesta's so real. Of course, I'm a little Reese fangirl. We know this. Like, love Reese and love it all. But he isn't asking to her. He is not nice to her. People are like, but he offered her jobs and he did all this stuff. And he's always mean. Actually, I can't remember I think it is in Akwar that Feyre and Rhysand get into their first fight, and it's because of the way he treats Nesta. Like, there's something where he says, and she's like, you can't say that. Like, Feyre has Nesta's back, and he's like, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. Blah blah blah. Because he loves Feyre.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he is an asshole to her, and it's not a great look. And so I think she's right. I love that. Also, I think it builds interesting tension and drama. I love that there's like not that she is a character who dislikes him and that he didn't just win her over like everyone else, because he does that with so many. He's kind of just like the fix-it-all wonderkin romance, suave guy for everything after Akmath. And I like that somebody doesn't like him.
No, that's a good point. I think for me, I just struggle with it because it's like, it's crazy to me, like crazy how with Faysand, I was just like fucking ride or die. Like they're the best couple. Like Rhysand is like so perfect and like
tattoo it on your body. Yeah.
No, literally get the Valaris tattoo on my on my body. Please no one do that. And then and then just like how bad I feel like they act in this book, and they really like, I see them in a different light, and I don't want to see them in a different light.
It's maybe a good, I don't know if it's like a nod to her writing, but because it's really Nesta's book and it's from her perspective too, that is how she feels and we feel it. And I think that that's actually, I'll give that kudos to her. Like, I think that's good writing, because I do think that some of the behaviors maybe don't like really align with how I see them. And so maybe I'm a little bit annoyed at that, because I just wonder if there's not great character continuity. But then there's some context. We find out in the first half, we can cut this if we need to, but we find out in the first half that Feyre's pregnant. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, is that coming up? Because I think that is contextually why Rhysand is acting so psycho Faye, because they reference that like males get super intense about their mates who are pregnant, and that they're animalistic, and like, so it's not, I'm not excusing it. I just think that if you want to say, why does it feel like the character doesn't match up exactly with how we would ride or die for them, or that what we come to think of him as a very, I don't know, like good person, right? Because the whole thing is that he's dark and that we don't like him, and then actually he's this like really good person, and then he's kind of a dick in this one.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, so he's like some animalistic protective asshole for his mate, his preggers. Because around this point, Cassian figures out a way to actually convince Nesta to really train. Like, they have that really bad blow up, which is good tension building. They have that fight, and then it's like Cassian regrets that he said that everyone hates her, because he's like, right, I love Nesta.
I don't hate you. So it's like not true. And I said that in the heat of the moment. And like, yeah, it's not like that we don't say things in the heat of the moment, but that is cutting, I feel like, so deep. But you're right. He then brings her to the top of the mountain at the House of Wind, so they're not at the Lyrian war camps. And then she's like, okay, this is way better. I'll train with you, because he realized that she doesn't want to be around like a bunch of other soldiers watching and
and
judging
be
her.
embarrassed on all these men. Right. And this is the big like moment of the bargain moment where he's like,
yeah,
where it's kind of, I'm kind of annoyed at it. I actually, here's what I love about it. So, right, what happens is Cassian is like 1 hour. Train with me for 1 hour and I'll owe you a favor. And it's like a bargain. And if we make the bargain, we'll get the like sexy tattoo that just magically appears on us. Ooh la la. And it kind of seems stupid because even Nesta's like, you would just trade an unknown favor for this. But I love that this is very Cassian, like in love, golden retriever. Like he's like, if this is what will do it, I will do anything to get you
yeah,
to try something different than what you've been doing. Like I'm here laying my heart out like on my sleeve. And I think he's quite nervous in it's from his perspective when he's trying to when he's like play
like
it cool.
coax her.
Yeah, he's like play it cool, don't make a big deal of it or whatever. And then she makes that and then so they don't really know what it is, but the what her favor will be, but it gets inked into them. And then she trains with him for an hour. And I think even just agrees to do like a second or third hour with him
Yep.
for no cost or whatever. And it's like, right, of course it's gonna work.
100%. Yeah, I do like this part. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I love the bargain. I love the bargains as like a theme in this book. She's like a scared puppy that you are trying to be like play it cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they make up. He's like, I didn't mean what I said. Meanwhile, in the library, they're still trying to find that book that Gwen misplaced, and she starts talking about how the priestesses do research on different realms, and there's this belief that there's 26 realms, and the last one is time itself, which will, play into a future storyline.
Nothing like Sarah J. Maas setting herself up for 26 different series that she can write until the end of time.
Is that what they're referencing? That the realms are other like the Crescent City
I believe,
and like Throne of Glass?
I believe so. I believe with more stuff that comes out in Crescent City that the reference is that there are different worlds and also that Sarah J. Maas has written, of course, two different worlds, but there's not much more there. We don't know much more about it at this point, so.
And Meryl is doing research also on the history of the Valkyries, which are the female, like a small group of female soldiers that were basically wiped out in the big war 500 years ago. So they're laying a little bit of the plot for the future parts of this book. We learn about Nesta's dancing lessons that she took as a child. And like this is when like the training starts, kind of happening.
The montage is happening. In the TV show, it would just go.
And she likes that she's like getting stronger and feeling more powerful and not feeling helpless and stuff like that.
Can I also, I don't know if it's this point or when it is, but part of the training is like breathing, and they don't call it meditation, but it's meditation. And the thinly veiled, maybe I'll save this for Grapes and Grumbles, but I'll mention it now, of like the thinly veiled mental health like storyline. Like I guess I wouldn't knock anybody for loving it and feeling connected to that, but I'm just like, you're doing breathing exercises and the meditation helps you deal with your trauma. I'm like, of course. I don't know, I want to read a fantasy book. I want to read her slay like 500 people and that fixes her problem.
No, literally 100%. Yeah, this was too relatable almost. And Cassie and Reese go to Springcourt to meet Eris. They're just talking about how they're going to deal with the queens. And Eris thinks that his father actually wants a war because he wants to take over the territory that will be unclaimed, like Springcourt. Because Springcourt is in shambles. Tamlin is still in his beast form and is just like
waiting for his next Beauty and the Beast story to happen.
Literally. And they kind of get into an argument about all of this because they have bad blood. They're like, you fucking left Moore in the forest, like left her there to die. And he's like, ask her actually what happened. She finally probably knows the answer. What is the answer?
What
is
is
the answer?
No, the teasing of this, like if it doesn't come out in the next book and I have to wait like 4 years to find out what really happened. I mean, they really set up Eris as like a big character to play in this, and there's so much conversation about what he did or didn't do to Moore, and that she maybe really knows, and then Moore's not really in this book. So there's definitely lots of hints dropped, but in the same way where I'm like, what is Moore's power? The truth. But what is that? What is the power? I'm like, what happened to her?
Just like death, like what truly like does that mean? Like
As long as you put a capital letter on it, he made death, then you can hand wave it away in this universe.
totally. We get more of Cassian's backstory about how his mom was unwed and she was shunned and had to have her child like alone in a tent, and then she was like worked to death and he was taken away from her. And he says he like went back and killed all of those people, and it took him like 10 years to like find the strength to like deal with that. And I just was like, and you gave her fucking 9 months or whatever. like
That they took like hundreds of years to deal with trauma or whatever, and they just could not give Nesta, also an immortal who needs time. It's kind of a bit of it's either poor storytelling that she didn't like kind of realize that of course Faye lived for hundreds and hundreds of years, they would have a different concept of time, and so it wouldn't feel that much, or really it underlines just how much they fucking hate Nesta and how terrible they were for dealing with this.
Do you think that this would be solved if it was like a 10-year time jump or something?
It's interesting, right? I mean, in her universe and what story she wants to tell, and like this is interesting for Nesta's development and stuff. But I truly am like, right, yeah. If you live for a mortal amount of time, 10 years might be like if you lose someone and have grief. It's not just gonna be like, oh, 9 months, you're over it. Like her dad died, and she went through war, and so yeah, I'm sure that in real life they need years and years and years and years of therapy and figuring it out. But I guess there's no time like now because there's still things brewing, like war and other things. So that's why they can't just do like a time jump.
So one night, Cassian asked Nesta at the House of Wind about her powers, and she's like, I don't have any. And he's like, you're lying. What are you afraid of? And like really just tries to like rile her up. And as you mentioned, her eyes start to glow like molten silver. And she realizes that he like riled her up on purpose to taunt her into using her powers. She like, it's again very enemies to lover. Like she gets riled up, she pushes him, and then she goes back to her room and jerks off.
Yeah,
and
and
he does too.
I mean, relatable.
Yeah, fucking truly.
But they're really, I know she's building the tension. I think a lot of people feel like the book could be cut, like a lot of pages, and a lot of it is just this like how many training scenes and how many almost sex scenes. But listen, the tension builds. It's the smuttiest of them all, folks.
I know, she actually does follow through on the smut in this book. While they're training, Cassian tells her about the blood rite, which is where when the Illyrians become adults and their power becomes like full strength, they have to climb up Ramiel, which is the big mountain that's like the, in the Valaris logo, basically. Like it's their branding, in their branding. And they get like taken and dropped on the mountain, and they have their wings tied, and they've got no access to magic or powers. And it's really difficult, and there's only like 12 people that have done it in like fucking 600 years. But
guess who did it?
Yeah, Rhys, Cassian, and Asriel, with the power of brotherhood, were able to reach the summit and touch the stone at the same time.
Yeah.
Fucking so annoying. And Nesta's like, I would love if we could also start training the priestesses, because they need to get out of the library.
Yeah, so how quickly things turn. Nesta's like, all right, wrap it up, folks. Now you all have to go over your trauma too, if I have to. That's really funny. I didn't think about that. But yeah, she wants to like encourage them. She asked for permission, right? And then she posts a little like,
Yes, this is my favorite thing.
rip this number if you would like to call 555-5555 if you want to train with being the best warrior ever.
It's very RA of her. Like
Ah,
it's
yeah.
very like put a poster on your dorm floor and see who shows up to the social. And and in true RA fashion, no one signs up. Like it's so fucking brutal.
That's really great. That's really great.
Elaine is pissed at Nesta. They have an argument. She like goes to check in on her, but she is again on some moral high ground about Nesta's behavior, and Nesta again cuts her like a fucking knife, like lashes back at her, blames their father's death on Elaine, says that she took too long to kill the king. And it's like, girly,
Brutal.
like
Brutal.
so fucking rude.
Just as we make some progress for like,
it's one step forward, two steps back. Nesta feels like, Elaine chose Feyre because Elaine is living over on Feyre's estate and stuff like that. And she just kind of goes for the jugular here. And Elaine runs off crying, looking for Rhysand to winnow her back to her house. And Cassian sees Elaine crying and is like, Nesta, like, what did you do? Because they cannot give that girl the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, yes, she was in the wrong for sure, but it's like Elaine was like waving, like Elaine was doing like a fake check-in basically, and like waving her pure life over Nesta's like slutty one, and Nesta's like, I know you had sex with that guy back at home, like. She's like, you're no better than me, or like we're not so different. And when Elaine doesn't see that, she like does go for the jugular. And we see this really cute moment where Cassian starts a fire in the house and Nesta keeps trying to have the house just like extinguish it. It's so fucking funny. When she goes and tries to go down the steps again, Cassian's waiting for her at the top and asks her again about Elaine, and she snaps. She doesn't want to hear about Elaine. She doesn't want to hear about Feyre and her special journey. And they kiss. She gets so upset. She thinks she lost the argument, and the only way that she can win it is if she kisses Cassian. And then she starts touching him, and he like comes in his pants like instantly, and she goes, like,
He's such a goner for her. Like,
and she goes a bit quick off the mark. Like,
no, I know. I love that banter. I love that. And he's just like, God. He's like, oh my fucking God. He's like the exasperated good soup.
It's really, really good soup. And, Azriel's doing his spy mission, and they realize that Brielyn is working alone. All the other queens have fled from her, and she only has Koschei. And he's trapped and needs something called the Death Trove to free him. And so we learn about the Death Trove, which is something that they just all forgot about in Akawar, but now remember. And it's 3 items that have special abilities. The Maas can raise the dead. The harp can open any physical door. And the crown can influence people. So, like, penetrate through the shields, their mental shields. And it's been lost. And it was made by the Cauldron, so they think maybe Nesta and Elaine, who were also made by the Cauldron, could find it. And Nesta doesn't want Elaine to be a part of this because of what happened when she was dragged in to everything with Akawar. Mm-hmm. And they go, well, Feyre was also made, so she can do it. And they go, no, she can't because she's pregnant.
Right. This is where we learn. Which immediately I'm just like, so, okay, so I don't like pregnancy trope. I don't I don't care for the way that people usually do it. So I'm just immediately like yawn, bore, snooze personally. But also, it is really like, yeah, all this stuff comes out where they're like, oh, that's why you had shields around her because Reason's so protective and he's so worried and Feyre's preggers and yeah, so Feyre can't help with anything.
And like I like that I definitely think that they are a couple that seems like they want to have a child and stuff like that. So it's like I love this journey for them. But I'm just like, again, you are fucking immortal. Why in the first 2 years of like getting together are you having a child?
I
Because
guess they're
two
made.
years, I guess they're mates, you're right. But
They're
it's
gonna
like
be
two
together forever.
years,
No, I know.
insane.
I
When you
know.
live for fucking
I know.
eternity.
Don't you want to like have a little bit more time of just like some fun?
Yeah, like 100 years of fun. Like,
It's like after the war, they're probably feeling all emotion. They probably fucked so much. Like
yeah, because they
inevitable.
had walls instead of being in a tent. And Feyre has this special moment with Nesta where she tells her that it's a boy and she's the only one that knows. So she's trying to reach out and try to build up their trust a little bit. Cassian seeks out Nesta in her room and he says, I want to like return the favor after last night, which is like, I don't know,
You don't like
very
it?
no, 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 no. I think it's very cutesy. I think it's very cute because they can't talk to each other without hiding it under the guise of something else.
Yes, yes, yes. Which is but like good tension building.
Yeah, and they like decide to basically be friends with benefits at this point, which is like that. I think this is the part that I don't really like because I'm like, I don't think you can be friends with benefits after you've declared.
Your love for
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like deep, like I will find you in another lifetime, no matter what, whether it's now or whatever. I mean, yeah, and we're just like so like, Cassian has it puppy dog bad for Nesta, and we know that Nesta's dealing with a lot, and so it's yeah, there's some tension because she's obviously not willing to admit or like has emotional availability, we can call it, to like
Yeah.
understand these feelings or figure it out. And she is hot for Castian and he's hot for her. So they're like, let's do
Let's
it.
get it on. He goes down on her and then leaves and says, like, we're even now. So no favors to be returned. They do more training. This is where we get the infamous scene because Nesta's like taking a break or like whatever. And Azriel's there training with Cassian. And she thinks about having a threesome with them.
I could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this is not surprising to you.
Yeah, just because we get this throwaway line, but the word on the street is that there was a whole entire. She plays out this entire thing in her head, and Sarah J. Maas cut it from the book. And I was like, of all the things you fucking cut.
There's some like hot takes on this because should we save this for internet at the very end?
Invest?
Yeah, investigation.
Yeah, let's do it.
But yeah, it's a very if you haven't read it and you are reading it or then you listen to this after, it's a very short throwaway line that she has a fantasy of imagining. I think I have the line here because I think about it and I found it. E uh Nesta had made herself focus during the lesson, but as soon as she'd left them in the training ring, filthy thoughts had poured in, leaving her half distracted while she'd walked down to the library. The thought of Cassian humping into her mouth while Azriel pounded into her from behind, the two of them working in tandem.
It's so funny rehearing that and just being
It's
like,
quite vulgar.
that is so out of pocket. like, like all of a
Yeah.
sudden I'm like, oh my god, that's actually like so out of pocket. like,
Should I read this? But I have to because I'm like obviously obsessed with it. Because when you read
yeah.
it, you feel like you're in a fever dream. You're like, wait, did she just write that? Because it's also like just Cassie and her. Anyway, so that throwaway line happens. We'll talk about internet investigation.
Sounds good. Nesta has a plan to involve the priestesses in training, she like trains in the library and has Cassian come down and like correct something for her, and they see that he is a nice guy and like that there would be safety there in the training. So Gwen comes to the training. It's the first time she's been outside of the library, and then we see Emery join a few days later after Nesta and her have lunch and kind of again build a little bit more trust. Cassian goes and meets Eris again because they need help finding the trove and information on the trove, and they end up getting into a fight again, and Eris calls him a bastard, and he goes home to the House of Wind really upset. And Nesta sees him and wants to cheer him up, so she goes down on him until
underneath,
and they're like underneath the table.
Yeah, I reread this scene before and I was like, oh, this is so like the smut is alive and well. She's just like couldn't even fit him into her mouth. She's obsessed with him, but she just so desperately wants to. It's like I think we get to a place where we move beyond sex being the only coping mechanism that they have. They definitely are using that pretty. She's like he's sad and I need to fix that. I know. I'll
blow
give him a
job.
blowy. I'll give him a blowy. And then Azrael, like, son of a bitch, love this guy. He just I mean, I think that Cassian's fine. He just doesn't get to return the favor to Nesta. And Azrael walks in and he's like, hey guys, what's up?
Yeah, and it's like with all of your like, spy master, like all your spy master powers, you know what was going down in that kitchen.
Don't forgive you for this. Like, this is like, you got me good. And I was like, I think because you decided to get your dick blown in the kitchen where like I'm supposed to eat, that I could say that. And Cassie's like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
He's like, you got me there.
Yeah, he's like fucking fair. That's so fucking funny. Okay, so Nesta tries to scry, which is like basically where you like rub two bones together. Like, and it's to help try to find the trove. She is unsuccessful in her attempt. Yeah, because she's like, oh, I see the priestesses. They're facing their fears. I got to do the same with mine. It brings up a lot of bad memories for her. And so at night, she has another nightmare. And Azrael and Cassian find her covered in silver flames, literally. And Rhys has to come and help calm her down. And this is when we find out that her power is pure death. Which is pure death, which is so funny. But Cassian stays the night in her room and like she awakes to him sleeping beside her in a chair. We find out that little baby Faysand has wings. It is going to be Illyrian. That is because Feyre and Rhysand conceived the baby when Feyre was in Illyrian form, but she can't shapeshift back into Illyrian form to have the baby with her widened hips that allow the wings to go through the birth canal, because that would be too dangerous. So he has no idea what he's going to do because she's just in Fey form. Fays can't, like, you will die if you try to birth the child with the wings.
I'll talk about this in Gripes and Grumbles.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, I feel like. It's a really tough pill to swallow. But Cassian tells this to Nesta once he finds out. And obviously, you know, she is distraught too. But again, and part of this is also that Feyre doesn't know, right? Yes, you're right. And you're right. When Rhys tells Cassian, he says, do not tell Feyre. And the healer that discovered this didn't tell her, only told Rhysand. And when Cassian tells Nesta, he says the exact same thing. And again, they're dysregulated at this point. So what does he do? He's like, so why haven't you like sought me out like to have sex? Like it truly always goes back to that. And she tries scrying again, and she needs something to ground her, so she holds Cassian's hands.
Cute.
Yeah, she like can't get out. She like is kind of like stuck in the silver flames, but he kisses her. and it like stops the, I guess, thoughts from coming, I guess, that take her out of this. But she's like, I know where the mask is. It's in the bog of Urid, which is in the middle. So we need to go there to find the mask. So Cassian, Nesta, and Azriel make the trip to the bog, and they go through a mist, and Nesta senses something, but Azriel disappears. So Cassian sticks Nesta in a tree. What are you two kids doing in a tree? High School Musical reference. And flies to go find Azriel because he can see his siphons glowing. And Nesta's like, hey, I feel like dumb just like sitting here. Like, you know, what do I do? If I was in the inner circle, I would help them out. So she goes to swim across the bog to get back to Azriel and Cassian, who are just like getting pummeled by soldiers.
Autumn
Court
the
soldiers.
Autumn Court soldiers that had gone missing, that Eris said had gone missing, they just showed up in the bog, and then they start fighting them, and they kind of look glassy-eyed, and like they don't really, like they're not responding to anything, and they're just like fighting to kill them.
And when she goes through the bog, when she tries to swim across it, she sees a kelpie, which is a fairy-like shapeshifter that lure people into the waters that they live in, and then they drown them.
And he tries to essay her. I just felt like it was so unnecessary. Like I was like, but yeah, actually this whole scene, not the scene just with the kelpie, but like this whole bog scene, I love the visuals of like the black gooey water and like this badass moment for Nesta and all of the like kind of action scene of it. It like reads quite fast and you're very invested in it. But like the way that I felt, it was so unnecessary that this kelpie was like, I'm gonna keep you for my bride. I'm gonna essay you, and then I'm gonna kill you. And
it was so creepy. Yeah, it could have just been like a nameless monster, but she like fights back, which I feel like Nesta previously wouldn't have fought back. So I think
she's badass.
Yeah, that showed growth. And then she sees the mask shining up at her, and she puts it on her face.
Because it rises the dead, right? The mask rises the dead, and this bog has so many dead soldiers and all these people from all of time. And they all like rise and kill the kelpie. And then it switches back to like Cassian's point of view, and he can't find Nesta because he doesn't know where, because she's underwater. Like the kelpie had like dragged her underwater, which is where she found the mask. Such an unnecessary point. He like smells her urine because she like peed herself.
She peed her pants because she was scared. Like I wanted to kill myself.
Back to watery bowels of Feyre, back to book 1 and all of her watery bowels. I was like, okay, I guess you would piss yourself. That's scary, but do you need to write about it? Anyways, so he's like, oh my god, she peed her pants. This is really bad. And as he's like,
I wish you like didn't remind me that happened.
I'm sorry, I reread this part before. So as they're looking for her, she and all of the soldiers, which I can just see in a movie or like an animated series would look so good, come up from the black waters.
Of the Caribbean.
Very Pirates of the Caribbean, and she's wearing this mask that like you know, allegedly loses people forever, and she's just like this queen, and Azriel and Cassian and all of the like bone soldiers bow
down to her
because she's like Lady Death. Like she is like oozing death, and Cassian's like, and the Illyrians did what we always did, which was bow down to Lady Death or whatever. It's a very cool visual. And then she like just takes it off her face, and all of the skeletons like collapse. And then I think she like faints,
she
collapses.
Goes unconscious.
Yeah,
which is so wild, and that's where we're gonna leave it for our like halfway through mark. But I agree, I actually think this scene is probably like my favorite in the book.
I think so too. Yeah. I think like the action pacing is really good. It's kind of always interesting when characters go off and have their own their own little arc and scene, and she kind of has this obviously very powerful moment. And I love anything with like Cassie and Azriel and Nesta. Like I love that they're kind of off adventuring. So
Me too. Okay, let's wrap up with our roundtable discussion. Our internet investigation. This is our cursory peruse of the internet of things you need to know. I think we'll try to cover these eventually, but there were 2 special editions of the book that have 2 bonus chapters, one of Azriel's POV and a Feyre recent POV.
the way I absolutely don't remember the Feyre recent one, so we'll have to reread that one. We will get into that.
Yeah, the Azriel one truly renewed my faith in this series.
Yes, I'm like gagging for next Azriel stuff. But internet investigation to throw back to the threesome because it's a rumor. It's a rumor. So yeah, the passing thought fantasy that Nesta has is about both of them like having sex with her and having a threesome. And also it references that she's had threesomes before when she was like having sex with people and that she like liked them and it was a good thing. So it's not that far off. But then it's such a random throwaway line. And so people were like, what was that? And like, was there more? And the rumor is, or in interviews or something, she mentioned that she was kind of writing, I think, a fanfic like in maybe the first draft, or she was kind of writing a fanfic of her own work where she was like imagining or like seeing what would happen if there was this threesome and what would happen if like Nesta had this fantasy. And then I think the going like idea around this is that she cut it herself before the editors even cut it because she was like, I won't be able to come back from that because later on, like Azriel will have a love interest, and it's not end game that they're a throuple or anything. So yeah. I just wish that I like that she had this fantasy. I think that it's not far off for Nesta. She's obviously a very sexual person. She like thinks Azriel's like good looking at points and all this stuff. I think that she could have had a dream sequence or something where it was like a little bit more. Again, I guess I don't know what that would move forward for the plot, but there's lots of sex scenes that like don't move the plot forward. It's just
we don't need to move the plot forward. But I completely agree because like also if you are an Elaine and Azriel shipper,
it messes that all up. Yeah.
If there was a detailed sex scene, it would be like, okay, now that's my sister's partner or whatever. And like, that's fucking weird if people think that that's the way things are going. So I get that. But yeah, I'm still so annoyed. I also want to say on RTBP, my other podcast, I had a baby name expert. She works for Nameberry, which is a baby name website. Sophie Keem, she's lovely, and she helps people pick baby names. And I asked her, I had her on my Patreon a few weeks ago, and I always ask her what the trends are and how pop culture influences baby names. So I asked about ACOTAR, because when we had talked 2 years ago, we talked about Twilight and how Twilight influenced baby names. So I asked about ACOTAR, and she said there was a little spike in Nesta, but the huge spike is in babies named Cassian.
No way! Yes. I love that fun fact. Well, I actually think of all the names, I was really hoping you wouldn't say Feyre, because I think that's not a good... And people would always be like, is your name Fair? Is your whatever? I actually don't mind the name Nesta. Like, as a name, I think it's pretty. And I actually think Cassian is also a nice name compared to like all the other ones. Like I feel like it would be more cringe if it's like, yeah, baby name's Azriel. Like I feel like it's like Xander or whatever, like would like go up. Like I don't like that, but I don't know. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that.
Neither am I. I think so many people are big Cassian girlies. I'm a Cassian girly. That probably didn't come across in this book, but but I do really like him, minus like the corporal punishment of it all. And yeah, so she said the big name is Cassian, and she said recent has been spiking and Reese and stuff like that, but the big runaway was Cassian, which I thought was really nice.
Funny.
Okay, our Wonder Whys, these are unanswered questions for the listeners. Like, my question, and like we kind of already discussed this, but it's just like, how did Faison get so fucking annoying? Again, this is like one of my favorite couples in some of my favorite books, and it kind of like, have you watched the entire Buffy the Vampire Slayer series?
No, I never watched Buffy, no.
Okay, well, Buffy is always righteous, but especially in the last season becomes such like a righteous bitch. And I just feel like that's them in this series. It's kind of getting that, like, it also kind of reminds me of Avatar and stuff like that, like books where it's like it's just so good versus evil. I think it got really like that. And yeah, I guess it's disappointing, but I do like your take or your explanation about this is Nesta's POV. So this is, we're getting it through her lens, which is might be, you know, the
That's the
truth might
most
be somewhere in
generous.
the, yeah.
That's the most generous explanation I can give, other than like poor writing that it doesn't really match up to the characters and their characterizations that we've done this whole time. Like, especially recent, I feel like doesn't match up to this, but I do think that it is Nesta's experience of them. And so if it's written that way, it does a good job, because we are kind of sitting there going like, what? I think, yeah, why is Faison so annoying is just a good question. We should think. I'd be curious to see how they show up in other things, because yeah, they're annoying in this one, or assholes. And my wonder why, what is pure death? Look, take me back to when we're like, what does that quote mean of like the stars are what does it mean? I can't even say the quote. I'm so sorry if
It's
you're
like
fans.
to those who wish we're gonna get canceled. I was literally gonna say to those who wish upon a star. Like, I don't, like, I actually, no, to those who like look up at the stars or whatever. Like, I'm just gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up because we are gonna get like absolutely brutally like annihilated on the internet. To the stars who listen and to the dreams that are answered.
I like to those who wish upon a star better. Quote in the first one or the second one, and you were like, what is that? That's in one of your wonder whys. It's like, somebody explain it to me. I'm like, somebody explain to me pure death. Like, somebody explain it to me.
Yeah, I just don't get it. And it's like, why? Yeah, why is she so different from everybody else? Just like how I've never understood how Amryn is so different from everybody else, like, truly.
Oh, well, Amryn's like not of this world, but
Yeah.
hand wave. Okay.
Our gripes and grumbles. These are our nitpicky problems we have with the book. We've said this, I don't know if we've said this on the pod, but you and I fucking hate how everything is Akatar, Akawar, Akamath, and then it goes Aksva.
Please. Rolls off the tongue now. Akamath, Akawar, Akatar. I could do it.
It makes no sense for the bitch that names everything 100 things that rhyme bone and feather and whatever. Like, everything makes so much sense, and then this one doesn't. Like, why doesn't she just even do a court of silver and flames?
Or a court of flames and something. Like, I feel like death and silver and death. I don't know. It could have. Anyways, gripes and grumbles, folks.
Yeah.
Keep it coming.
No more training. It almost aired on too much bickering for me. And too much steps, montage, training montage. Like, I don't give a fuck. Shorten the book by this book is 80 chapters. We just went through 40 of them, and if you can believe it, we skipped a lot. And like if you can believe it,
I think a lot of people feel that it could be shorter. I think what my side take of that is I'm not looking these books, I'm not looking for like the most amazing writing and the most amazing editing. I actually love that I'm like, just give it all to me, unfiltered. Give me that threesome scene that you filtered out. I actually don't care that it's super long. I wouldn't mind if they broke it up into like this one into 2 books. Like, give me 2 books then. I don't mind breaking it up. I want all of the content, whether it's good or bad, because I love the content. And also because I just don't think as much editing could make it that much better or worse. Like, that's maybe my hot takes. I'm like, so just give it to me all. But it's quite a big. It drones on a little bit much in some spaces.
100%. The other thing I want to say is, yes, we talked about this. I felt like the romance novels were a little too on the nose. I even think that, and this is probably my hottest take, but a sister, an Archeron sister, and a Batboy relationship, again, that's why I'm like, Azriel and Elaine, even though I am rooting for Azriel and Elaine because of the bonus chapter, it's like I just can't root for them because I cannot root for all the Archeron sisters getting together with the Batboys. Like,
maybe there's going to be some like overarching hand wavy fate thing revealed
yeah.
about that we didn't know, about like little clues that she dropped here and there throughout the entire series that we go, oh, like, I mean, I hope for that, because then it's always like a little bit like, love that you thought all these things through and that there's like this payoff. But yeah, I mean, she knows her formula, and I'll be gobsmacked if it's not an Elaine and Azriel. I'll be gobsmacked because
Yeah.
you know, it's all about the Archeron sisters and the Bat Boys.
Also, I'd be gobsmacked too because I want to see how she disassembles all of the mate lore.
Oh yeah, actually yeah, because Elaine and Lucian are mates. Me too. Me too. I am like really interested in something different being like revealed about that. My gripe and grumble is this well, first of all, at this point of what we know in the novel, that first of all, Rhysand is not telling Feyre about this, like, potentially this is maybe the least in character choice of everything, because so much of the early books are built off of Feyre not being able to trust Tamlin because he doesn't tell her anything, and then so Rhysand's like, that'll never happen, and he brings her in and he tells her all this stuff up front, and I think that's a pretty big gripe and grumble of this book in general. The only thing, again, I see maybe where people are like, no, it makes sense, he's crazy in his pregnancy protection, and so he's not thinking straight, and so he just does what he wants to protect her, but I just am like, this doesn't fundamentally make sense for who he is as a character, and that he wouldn't tell her. And are you kidding me? There's all this magic. There's death in it and of itself. Feyre and Rhysand have both come back from death, even though you shouldn't be able to. And it's a baby because you had sex when you were in a different form. That's the thing that's going to kill you. I don't buy it. I don't like it. It seems like the most flimsy, made up plot point. I don't like it.
100%. You're right. This is really icky, I feel like, of Rhysand. I feel like we've given him a lot of flack in this episode, but at this point, I kind of think it's warranted. Mm-hmm. It also just is so much like Breaking Dawn for me, where it's like, don't tell Bella, she will basically die during childbirth.
Why is everything why does it all come back to Twilight? It really was the blueprint. It really was.
I know. I really feel like we should start a new podcast that just say like, that's just called All Roads Lead to Twilight, and we literally just talk about everything that
put it on the books. Yeah, agreed. That's my biggest gripe and grumble.
Yeah, like, okay, Rhysand, who are you, Rosalie? Like, it pisses me off. So, yeah, I dislike this. I'm stoked that the baby is going to be cute with wings. But, yeah.
Important things.
Okay, finally, our sequel scoop. This is our tea on any upcoming sequels, seasons, and the general reception. We know that SJM is currently writing book 6 of ACOTAR, which is very exciting. She said in February 2021 that she would like to write a book for Elaine, so people think that the book will center around Elaine, but people also say maybe Azriel, or maybe it's Elaine and Azriel dual POV, or we might be getting Tamlin. A more... I know, or I think that those are the leading theories, and then I think the secondary theories are Tamlin or more.
Yeah, we definitely know that there will be, because she does follow up on storylines, so there have been things dropped for sure. But personally, I would love something out of left field. Like, I don't care about Elaine, and I'm sure if she writes a book about her, I will care about her. But actually, I would like an entire Azriel point of view. You're a Cassian girly, everyone else a Rhysand girly. We know I'm an Azriel girly, and so I would love that. I'd also, if it's an Elaine book, I think I saw like crack theories of like Elaine going to the spring court and figuring stuff out with Tamlin. And I'm like, at least that's interesting and unexpected. So I'll take it. Or I'll take a whole book. I'm a Lucian girly, so I'll take a whole book about Lucian. Like, and his polyamorous little family.
Band of Exiles. Yeah.
Love it.
It's so fucking funny. Yeah, completely agree. I think if gun to my head, if I had to choose, I think I would want an Asriel POV. And this is the most unfeminist thing I'll ever say. I do not give a fuck about Elaine outside of the context of Asriel or Lucian. And
you're so real for saying that.
I was thinking for a second, I was like, should I be brave? should I say something that is so very honest, I feel like. But
Faith 4, this is what I will say about that, is that I have faith that if she writes an Elaine book, which I'm sure she will, if it's the next one or not the next one, because the Archeron sisters will totally get it. I did not give a fuck about Nesta, and neither did you. When you early on read and you were like, I heard that one's about Nesta, and I said, have the faith, read the big book, and now I'm obsessed with Nesta, and I'm like, right, yeah. I love her better than anyone else. So do I have the faith that SJM will be able to turn me around on Elaine? Yes. I just also am like, why couldn't you have planted some seeds to get me excited about her up until this point? Maybe that's what I'm a little bit like, don't give me something that I'm dreading and then I'll change my mind on. Like I'm excited for Asriel, so give me something.
Totally. And this is really devastating for me. We got some TV show updates, and longtime listeners of the pod know that I am a Ronald D. Moore stan, because he was the creator of Outlander, which I am currently doing a reread of. This is how psycho and depressed I am. I am currently simultaneously reading the audiobook. So I guess listening to the audiobook, watching the TV shows that cover the chapters I just watched, and then listening to the podcast by Ronald D. Moore about the episodes.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
And your mental health.
And my mental health. But yes, I think I haven't actually watched Battlestar Galactica, which is like his other big show, but I trust him with my life after Outlander. But guess what? He is no longer working on ACOTAR. He left Disney and returned to Sony, and ACOTAR is under the 20th Century Television Disney umbrella. And so he said just 2 weeks ago that he doesn't know the status of the project, and that he's no longer attached to it. And I'm like, that is a huge fucking loss.
You know that I don't ever want this to see the light of day on a TV series unless it's animated, so I'm fine with that. But I'm sorry for your loss.
I know, just like also I think knowing how well he did with the books, but listening to the podcast and how he describes how he took page to screen is honestly, even if you aren't like an Outlander girly or whatever, is so interesting. The bits that he picks up on, the way that he lit everything, all the costuming, all of the important lines, like he just took so much care and worked really closely with Diana, the author. I think he would have done that with SJM too. So it's now if it does get greenlit, I am worried.
Right. Okay, yeah. I see.
Any final thoughts on...
Can't wait to rip apart the second half with you.
Yeah, me too.
Love to see it. Love the characters. We'll get there.
Yeah, we will. Okay, Megan, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see you for part 2 of Silver Flames. And that's the story of A Court of Silver Flames, chapters 1 through 36. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Megan for joining me on today's episode. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this and leave us a rating and review. This helps us find new listeners so we can grow the RTBR community. If you would like to suggest a book for me to cover in a future episode or leave a voicemail about a question or comment that you have, you can do so via the links in the episode show notes. Our next episode is A Court of Silver Flames, chapters 37 to 80. Until then, happy reading. For Ready to Be Romance, I'm Tori. Goodbye.